it's Becky. Welcome back to my channel. I have another homeschooling video for you guys today that I thought would be really fun. I don't think anybody's ever done it before with homeschooling. I've seen people do it with like beauty products and favorites and all that stuff, where they do a where are they now kind of thing of things they used to love and use, and do they still love them? Are they still using them, and why or why not? So I thought it'd be really fun to make that video, but make it a homeschool curriculum, where are they now? This one is actually for my younger daughter who is in 4th grade. So we have been homeschooling her from the beginning. So preschool, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then we are doing 4th grade right now. So I thought it'd be really fun to go back and watch my old curriculum choices videos that I filmed, which for her, I only did 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. I didn't do one for kindergarten or pre-K. So for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, what we were using back then in those videos, and are we still using them? And if not, why? Or if we are, how is it going? Why we still continue to love it and use it? So if you want to see my homeschool curriculum, where are they now video, then stay tuned. Okay, so I've got a lot of notes here because I had to go back and watch my old videos. I kind of combined all 3 of those grades together, going over not every curriculum that we use, but most of either the popular ones or the ones that are for more common, like core subjects like math and reading and science and things like that. Combine them all together in this list, and I'm going to be talking about each one of them. So starting off with math for her, we did Math UC for kindergarten and I believe 1st grade. And Math UC is not terribly cheap. If you don't know, it's like a manipulative based curriculum where they have these little blocks that kind of go together like Legos, and they have video instructions to watch. And I think it's a really good program in theory, but I feel like it was a very expensive program for what it was. And I just don't really, I didn't enjoy it personally. The lessons were gentle, which was nice, but I didn't feel like, even though there were video lessons the child could watch, I still didn't feel like there was enough instruction if they weren't grasping a concept. So for us, that didn't work for very long. We used it temporarily just because we were trying to wait until she was old enough to start the program we really wanted to start, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But it got us through kindergarten and it got us through 1st grade, and that was really its only purpose that it served for us. Next math program that we tried while we were waiting for the math program that we really wanted to use was Master Books Math Lessons for a Living Education. I like the idea of this one as well. It is very real world, kind of scripted, conversational math. So you have a workbook that you're reading to the child, a story about these 2 kids, and they go to their grandparents' house and their farm, and they're learning about the world around them while they're learning about math. It was very, very gentle. I liked that about it, and I like how it did include manipulatives like Math UC, but it didn't require expensive blocks. You would use like beans or puff balls or cotton balls, things you pretty much have around the house, or things that were a lot cheaper than Math UC, where you had to have their blocks really to make it work to the best of its intention. So I like the Master Books workbook. We only used it for that 1 year. I believe it was 2nd grade, or most of 2nd grade, but it still wasn't for us, and it wasn't where we ever intended to stay. We never intended to use Math UC long term, and we never intended to use that one long term, because I have an older daughter who has already been using teaching textbooks. We used teaching textbooks with my oldest daughter from the beginning of her homeschooling journey, which was about 4th grade, middle of 4th grade. I already knew I loved teaching textbooks, but they didn't start until Math 3 with teaching textbooks. So I had to wait until my youngest daughter was old enough and had the right skills to be able to start Math 3 with teaching textbooks. Once she was old enough, which was around the end of 2nd grade, we were like, get rid of all this other stuff. Let's get on teaching textbooks because it's amazing. I love teaching textbooks because there are video lessons like Math UC, but I feel like there's so much more detail in the teaching textbooks lectures from what I've seen than what we were seeing in Math UC. The main thing for me though, even if the lessons were the same thoroughness, which I don't know if they are or not. I haven't watched the upper levels of Math UC's lessons, so I can't compare that. But just lower levels, I feel like there's a lot more explanation in the teaching textbooks video lessons versus Math UC. And if they miss a problem, then it's going to show them immediately how to fix it, how to find the answer. It's going to show them again how to solve that problem. You don't get that with Math UC. They show you in the lecture what they're teaching, but then you're on your own to do it in your workbook. So I love that about teaching textbooks, that it teaches it once, and if necessary, it will teach it again and again and again. All while keeping grades for me. I don't have to grade anything. They have free tutoring. If you call them and your child is still struggling with something, you can call and set up to have a tutor call you back. It's amazing. And then now with the Teaching Textbooks 3.0, all the lessons are online. So if you don't want to have to worry about purchasing discs anymore and getting a computer with a disk drive, you can do Teaching Textbooks 3.0. All of their lessons are online. You can do it in your home. You can do it on the laptop while you're out to eat somewhere. As long as you have internet, you can do your math lesson, and you can stop wherever you need to, pick right up wherever you need to. I can erase lessons if the girls are really struggling and they just want to start a lesson all over again. I can erase the entire lesson and they can start over from the beginning, rewatch the lecture, redo the problems, and it's perfect. It is perfect for us. Both girls are doing really, really well, and it saves me, someone who's not very good at math, from having to teach it and having to try to explain it to how a child may understand it. It's amazing, and Teaching Textbooks has always been the goal for my youngest, to get her to that point. Thankfully, that didn't take too very long. She started Teaching Textbooks grade 3 at the end of 2nd grade. She did it for 3rd grade. She's doing it for 4th grade. She's almost finished with Math 4. She's going to be starting Math 5 here in the next month or so. So I love it. If you guys can't tell, I love Teaching Textbooks. I've talked about it so much on my channel, and I really, truly do love it. So that was math for her. Another thing that we used and that we still use for Bible is Draw to Learn. We don't do it every single day, and it's something that we've kind of done and then not done and then done, but both girls are really artistic. It was a program that I got mostly for my oldest daughter when she was around 5th grade. She's very artistic. Both girls really love to draw, they love to color, and it includes Bible lessons, like a Bible verse and a little bit of a Bible lesson where they have a picture to draw and color that goes along with that Bible verse. So it's really, really simple and basic, but if you have a child that likes to draw and be creative and you want to find a Bible curriculum and a way to kind of pull the two together, I really love it. It's really, really inexpensive, and both girls have done really well. And there's several different ones. They have Draw to Learn Proverbs, they have Draw to Learn the Life of Jesus, Draw to Learn Psalms. So tons of different ones to choose from, and it's something that we have done off and on pretty much for the last 5 years. So I really highly recommend it. We do still use it from time to time. My only negative about it is, and this is just based on my kids, sometimes they get a little wrapped up in the drawing that they take so much time finishing it that they don't get their other work done as fast. Not to say that Bible's not important. It definitely is. We definitely have Bible woven into some of our other curriculum that we use. But if you have a child that tends to take a long time with drawing and then coloring it and it has to be perfect, then maybe you would want to only do Draw to Learn maybe a few times a week, or have it as their last subject once they get all their other work done, because sometimes my kids can get kind of wrapped up in it. And by the way, I'm going to link everything in the description box, so don't worry that you're not maybe remembering everything I'm saying. I will link everything for you guys in the description box. Okay. For reading, we tried a few other things. We did Hooked on Phonics, hated that. We did a program from Teachers Pay Teachers. I loved the first level. I think the second level wasn't the greatest, so we didn't finish that. And that was when we started All About Reading. All About Reading, I believe we started, I think it was in 1st grade. It may have been 2nd grade, but I'm pretty sure it was 1st grade. I love All About Reading. My daughter has now gone through all 4 levels. She's an amazing reader. We're still continuing to work on comprehension and fluency, but as far as like the basics, All About Reading was like my holy grail reading program, because my oldest daughter was public school, so until 4th grade, middle of 4th grade. So she learned how to read in school. I didn't have to teach her to read, but when we were homeschooling my younger daughter, I had to teach her to read. That was all my responsibility, and I'm not a teacher, so I had no clue how to teach someone to read. So I was really, really scared and intimidated, and I love All About Reading because it was very, very gentle. It's multi-sensory, so you've got activities that touch every learning style every day, every week. You've got magnetic letter tiles, you've got flashcards, you've got worksheets, you've got cutting and pasting activities, you've got readers, like little books that go along with the level, so that you know the book your child is reading is appropriate for the level of reading where they are. I feel like that's a big problem when you're trying to teach your child to read and maybe you don't have readers that go along with where they are. They can get really frustrated because some of those like step into reading books, some of them have like ridiculous words or really hard names. And I feel like it just frustrates kids. So I loved how All Out Reading came with those readers because it knew what level she was on and what she was capable of reading So it was a perfect fit. So I love that program. I highly, highly recommend it. I cannot recommend it enough. And actually the creator of it has a dyslexic son, and she actually created it for him. Now, my daughter's not dyslexic, but whether your child is or not, I feel like because it is so multisensory, it's gonna be something that your child will thrive on no matter what their learning style. And for you as the parent, the teacher, it is all scripted out and tells you exactly what to say, which I needed because I had no clue what to say. And let's be honest, the English language is ridiculous. It is so hard to explain all of the rules, and sometimes this happens, but then sometimes it doesn't. So those teacher's manuals really held my hand through all of that and helped me to know what to say and when to say it. Perfect, perfect program. And I highly recommend All About Reading. On the other hand, All About Spelling, which is created by the same company that does All About Reading, I really wanted to love it. I love the concept of it, but I feel like for young kids, especially when they're early readers, like level 1, level 2, I feel like all of the rules that are taught in All About Spelling, while they are important, are a little bit much sometimes. And that's why we stopped using it. We did All About Spelling level 1 while we were doing All About Reading level 1. And I just felt like by the time we started All About Reading level 2, we were gonna start All About Spelling level 2. And I just feel like it was too many rules, too much to remember, too overwhelming for her, too overwhelming for me, and so we stopped using All About Spelling. But I do love the concept of it. For us, it did not work out. So after All About Spelling, we switched to Spelling UC, which is made by the same people that make Math UC. And the whole principle of their spelling program is copy work, and that you're gonna remember how to spell things based on repetition. I really wanted to love it because it was really, really gentle and simple. And I know in the higher levels, the copy work that the children are copying is like really interesting, important nonfiction information about historical people or events or things like that. But I just found that it was not working. I don't even think we finished the first level. I knew about halfway through the book, when her spelling was not improving whatsoever, that it was not the program for us. So while a lot of people love it, it just did not work for us. As frustrating as that is, it didn't. So we went to a more traditional spelling program like I was used to doing in school. We went to Spectrum Spelling, which is a really inexpensive workbook. It's around $8 or $9 on Amazon. And basically you have a spelling list at the beginning of the week, and you have to remember the words, and they give you activities throughout the week in the workbook to use those spelling words. That was the concept, and it worked a lot better. I noticed more improvement in her spelling with that workbook than with either of the other two programs that we had tried. However, I don't feel like there were enough activities using the spelling words, because at least one day of the week they had an activity in their workbook that didn't even use their spelling list, which made no sense to me, because that was the whole point of the activities, was to use the spelling words, but it didn't. And then there was also one where they were supposed to write an entire paragraph using spelling words from their list, which is a great idea, but when you have a really young writer who maybe the thought of writing an entire paragraph and then using specific spelling words in that paragraph was a little daunting, so I found that we were skipping that. And by the time we did that, we were skipping 2 days out of the week, so she was only getting 3 days of practice with her actual spelling words. So that was my issue with Spectrum Spelling. We have since changed to Evan Moore Building Spelling Skills. It is working out so much better. And it's the same concept, so the concept and the approach is the same, where she's memorizing the words and she's using those and she's working with those words all week long. It's just this time, every day of the week, she has an activity that, number one, she can do, and number two, uses all of her spelling words. So we are loving that so far. It's been working the best, and that method of spelling has been working the best as far as just having a list and then working with the words, and that workbook in particular has been a good fit for us so far. So highly recommend the Evan Moore Building Spelling Skills. Okay, so going back and thinking about English, language arts, we used to use First Language Lessons for the Well-Trained Mind. I loved it for years and cannot say anything negative about it really. I think it's a great program, especially for really young kids who you want to start talking about grammar and all of those things, but you don't want to overwhelm them. I feel like it's a really good fit. The first 2 years of First Language Lessons doesn't even have a student workbook. It is you talking to your student and having them do little things on paper here and there, or little flashcard activities, but there's not even a student workbook. So definitely very gentle, and I do like it. and I don't have anything really negative to say about it. It's very repetitive, which is good for young learners, very gentle, very scripted for you as the teacher. I did want her to have a little bit of extra practice though, and since there is no student workbook for levels 1 and 2, we ended up getting the Moffitt Girls Language Arts bundle off Teachers Pay Teachers. I loved that because if we were talking about, you know, adjectives, I could go get an adjective worksheet from that bundle, print it off, and she would have a worksheet to do that kind of reinforced what we were talking about. So maybe that's not the way that First Language Lessons was designed to be used, but that's how we did it for those first few years. One reason why I decided to switch from First Language Lessons, we did start level 3. We didn't do it for very long because I knew the higher levels of that program I didn't want to use because my older daughter had done it for a little while and it was horrible. So I felt like there was no point in continuing on with the program that I knew I wouldn't use long term, and also it didn't have any writing really. I mean, they had some copy work, but there was really no writing instruction at that point. And I wanted her to have more writing because I felt like that was something that was lacking. So what I ended up doing was switching to BJU Press English. I love it. Now, knowing now how much I love BJU Press, maybe I would have started with that back in first grade had I known then what I know now about how much I love it. But I didn't know that then, and First Language Lessons served us well for a few years. Now we use BJU Press for English. We actually use them for a few subjects, and I love them so far. Every single subject that we've done of theirs, I love. The English program I really, really love because it combines grammar and writing. So you have a chapter of grammar and a chapter of writing, and a chapter of grammar and a chapter of writing. So you're never really forgetting about writing while you're doing grammar. You know, you're kind of rolling through them fairly quickly. There's a teacher's manual that's very scripted, tells me what to say, has the answers. There's a student workbook, so she's got a workbook. There's also extra printables that you can print off of the teacher's manual disc if she needs more practice. There are tests, and it does have some biblical teaching rolled into it. So I really, really love it. It's a great program, very well-rounded. We're getting ready to start BJU English 4. Just finishing up level 3, and I can't say enough good things about it. I love it. So if you are looking for a writing program and or a grammar program, I highly recommend BJU Press. Okay, for science, the Good and the Beautiful science units, which are incredible. If you've never done any of the Good and the Beautiful science units, then you definitely should, especially if you like more family style or very teacher-led curriculum. It is very much that way. It works really well as a group subject, and it works really well with younger kids. You can kind of beef it up if you need to, but keep it simple if you need to. There's a lot of hands-on, a lot of activities. And my daughter really enjoyed the units that we did with them, and so I do really recommend it. But we ended up switching because I wanted something more traditional. As she was getting older, by the time we finished the Good and the Beautiful science units that we had, she was definitely very ready to go and do something a little bit more student-led versus just me reading the lessons to her. At that point, she had already finished her reading program, all about reading. She'd finished all 4 levels. She was a really good reader, and I wanted to give her a lot more of the responsibility of read this chapter and, you know, do this worksheet. Kind of guiding her and leading her towards more independence. And if you are looking for a more textbook style, student-led, more traditional science program, then definitely we really have enjoyed BJU Science. She is doing BJU Science 4. We started it last year. We took a break from it now because she's doing history first semester, and then with BJU, and then in fall of this year she'll be starting back up with Science 4 from BJU, which we really like. There's experiments, there's a workbook, there's tests. But the reading that is there, at least in level 4, is not overwhelming for her. It's definitely on her level, but still challenging to her, and which is what I wanted. It kind of hits the high points of science and doesn't make it too wordy or too overwhelming, which I do think is really important, especially in these young years. So we really love the BJU Science programs. Okay, so for history, I talked about that a minute ago. We used to use Story of the World. We did it as a group subject, and we loved it for years. It's made by the same people that do First Language Lessons for the Well-Trained Mind, so it's very conversational, very family-based. Like you read, it's actually like more of a chapter book than a textbook. And then they have a workbook for the students based on their level. So we did that for a few years, and I loved it for a few years. But again, both girls are getting older, and I really felt like we needed something more traditional, something that was not so parent-led, and something that was a lot more difficult, especially for my oldest daughter who is in high school. So I knew it was time to switch. I didn't know really to what, but since we were having so much success with BJU Press for English and for science, I decided to go ahead and try their history program. So this year, the girls are doing their distance learning, so they watch their videos online. My oldest daughter's doing World History. My youngest daughter's doing Heritage Studies 3, which is a 1-semester course. Story of the World served its purpose, but I just don't feel like it's a good program if you want your child to have more independence and to be required to do more of the reading, and especially for older kids, I just don't think it's enough. At the time, I thought it was, 8th grade. It was iffy, but there was a workbook that you could print off that went along with it that was a little bit more challenging for like an 8th grader. But beyond that, I definitely don't think it's difficult enough. So that's why we switched. Okay, the last thing is vocabulary. With my older daughter, when she was my youngest daughter's age, she did Scholastic's 240 words, 240 vocabulary words every kid needs to know. I loved that with my older daughter, and I felt like it was a great fit. So I automatically got it for my younger daughter. I bought 5 levels of it in PDF form. And then after the first year of using it, which I believe was 3rd grade, was like our first official year of using a vocabulary program, I just realized it wasn't a good fit for her. I don't think there was enough practice using the vocabulary words, and so I switched her to Evan Moore's Word a Day workbook, and I just did a vlog. I had a vlog go up a few weeks ago where I showed you how we do vocabulary with that workbook. A couple things that I found to print off the internet that go along with it, and then how we made a word wall for her word each day, and then how we test full vocabulary. So if you want to see a little bit more about that, then definitely check out that vlog. I'll have it linked for you. But so far, the Evan Moore Word a Day is working out much, much better for her than what we were previously using for her, and then what we had previously used for my older daughter. So that just goes to show you that just because something worked for one kid does not mean it's going to work for every other child after that. They all have different strengths. They all learn differently. They all respond differently to different types of curriculum and programs. So you really have to keep in mind, yeah, it's great to save things for your younger kids, but you may end up saving something that you never use because your other kids, it just doesn't work as well for them, and that's okay. I feel like I've been talking for 9 million years. I realize this is a lot of information, but this is kind of combining 3 years of curriculum, most of the curriculum, not everything. I really hope it was helpful because I personally would have loved to kind of hear something like this later on, like years later. If somebody was still using the program, and why or why not, and if not, what are they using now that may be a better fit, because there are so many different curriculums out there, and it is overwhelming, and it is a lot of trial and error to find what works best for you and your child. And like I said, even if it works for one kid, it may not work for the other. So you really have to be kind of willing to roll with the punches that homeschool brings, and it definitely does. So I hope this video was helpful. If it was, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to check the description box. I will link everything that I talked about in today's video. Even if we're not using it, you can go back and look at it and then kind of compare it to what we're using now. I've got tons of other homeschool curriculum videos in my homeschooling playlist, which I will also link. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of those. And if you have any questions or comments, then definitely feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I always read your comments. I will definitely get back to you if you have a question. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.